Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Facebook Live. I'm Shaun McKinley, International Director of Children's Ministries for the Church of God of Prophecy, and I want to thank you for joining us today. In just a few moments, I'm going to introduce my special guest to you, but first we want to invite you to join us for today's giveaway drawing. We are giving away 3 copies of a very special book I've given away a lot before called Unwrapping the Servant. This is a book by a friend of ours, Tina Hauser. And it's full of ideas for engaging kids in your local church in opportunities to serve in their home, their church, and their community. In just a few moments, we're going to talk a little bit more about how we connect our kids to service. But this resource is an excellent book, again, full of ideas that you can use immediately in your local church. So if you'd like to be entered into today's giveaway drawing, we're going to ask you to do 3 things. We're going to ask you to like this Facebook Live. We're going to ask you to make a comment, maybe tell us where you're watching from, or feel free to ask questions throughout this presentation. And then thirdly, we're going to ask you to share it to your wall. If you will do those 3 things, like, comment, and share, you will be entered into the drawing for one of these great books. You'll have 24 hours from the start of this video to do those 3 things, like, comment, and share. And tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, we will give away these books. Well, I'm very excited to tell you about a special initiative that Children's Ministries has now partnered with Youth Ministries for the last couple of years in. It's called Global Serve Day. Global Serve Day actually goes for 3 days from May 27th through the 29th of this year, where we engage our young people in serving their home, their community, and their church. We have some special resources and tools available to help you as you connect your kids with these opportunities. But first, I want to invite you to take a look at this video about Global Serve Day, and we'll be right back after this. Welcome back. So we are excited about Global Serve Day this year. We've been able, as I said earlier, to be a part of this awesome opportunity now for the last couple of years as our International Youth Ministries has launched and shepherded this weekend of service and of giving back. And so we are excited to offer a new resource this year, which is our Global Serve Day program guide and booklet. Now, I wrote the original guide a couple of years ago, but this year we felt like we needed to update it and maybe bring some new ideas to our local children's ministers and families to be engaged again in Global Serve Day. So this year I decided to reach out to a friend of mine to help us with this project, and I'm so glad that she said yes. I'm going to introduce you to her in just a moment, but let me tell you about this special young lady. Her name is Leslie Hartman. Leslie is passionate about sharing Jesus with everyone she comes in contact with. She does this mainly through writing, making the world accessible for people with disabilities, and ministering to children in various ways. Feeling a call into the ministry at the age of 14, Leslie officially became a licensed minister in the Church of God of Prophecy in March of 2020. Leslie holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in history and a Bachelor of Arts in communication media writing from Lee University. In May of 2020, Leslie started the Kids Ministry with Miss Leslie Facebook group to minister to children and their families. Leslie also blogs at Lightning and Snowflakes and Leslie's Library Escape. We'll include links to those blogs in the comment section of this video. God has blessed Leslie with the best family and friends in the world, and she loves working for him. So I'm so excited to introduce you to our friend, Leslie Hartman. Hi, Leslie. How are you today?
Good. How are you, Shaun?
I am doing so good, and I have been looking forward to this interview ever since you agreed to giving it, Leslie. So Leslie, I reached out to you maybe a month or so ago, and I said, we have this project we're trying to pull together. Would you be a part of helping us write our Global Serve Day booklet? And I'm so glad that you agreed to. So before we get started, I have just a few questions, and we'll tell everybody about the guide. But why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and the unique opportunities that God has given you to serve kids as well as grow in your passion as a writer?
Yeah. Well, like you said, I'm Leslie, and I have cerebral palsy, and that means it's a physical disability, and that just means I get around a little differently than everyone else. Sometimes I use a walker, sometimes I use a wheelchair, but I can still do things for God despite having a physical disability. I live in Nashville with my parents, and I have two younger brothers. And growing up, I just always loved writing. Ever since I was 3 years old, I wanted to go to college and I wanted to write. And so it's just amazing how God has allowed me to do that over the last few years. And I've been working with children's ministry since 2009 in various capacities. And it wasn't something I thought that I would, see myself doing when I was little. But once God opened up the door, I knew that was what he wanted me to do. Write, do writing, work with children's ministry, and make the world handicap accessible. That's been my goal since I was 3 years old. And I have a long way to go, but I'm working toward it.
I love that, Leslie. And I have often said that you are one of the most inspirational members of our Kid Men tribe. And we just thank God for what he's doing. And I love that really during the pandemic, he opened an opportunity for you to serve kids virtually, and you stepped with confidence right through that door. And it's been so impressive to see what God has done through you through all of these various channels. So we celebrate what God has done. Now, thinking about Global Serve Day, as I mentioned, we have a free guide that we make available in multiple languages to help people know how to walk their kids through the 3 days of service. When I contacted you, I gave some kind of clear parameters, but what I love is you said that you had an inspiration and wanted to know if it was okay to pursue it. Of course, we said yes, because it was way better than what I asked you to do. So why don't you talk just a little bit? There are 3 days of service. One day we serve the home, one day we serve the community, and one day we serve the church. So why don't you talk about your inspiration for the guide and those 3 days?
Okay. So when Shaun asked me to do this, God kind of dropped in my spirit what he wanted me to do. And he gave me like an inspiration for a devotional type format. And so I almost got everything immediately. It was the editing process that took longer. But like you said, we work the family first, then community, and then the church. And so every day you get a Bible story. And then I expound on the Bible story thought. I won't give away any spoilers. You'll have to read it for yourself. And then there's a prayer at the end and a space for you to write and or activity, maybe. And then a Bible verse that correlates the whole thought and kind of ties it together. So it was just a really fun project to work on. So,
Well, you did a great job with it, Leslie. And previously what we did, we just kind of shared some ideas for each day of Global Serve Day. But as we've mentioned, you took it further and created a devotional that kids can do on their own or they can do it with their family. And I love that. So each day has the short devotion again that kids can do. And so what are the stories that you chose and maybe can you tell us why you picked the ones you picked?
Okay. For let me see. For family, I chose the widow's mite or the widow's offering, depending on what version of the Bible you use, depends on the story title. But what I loved about the widow's mite for families is that when Jesus saw her throw in the pennies, I did, or coins, I called them pennies, don't know why, but coins, I did research on it. And back in Bible times, the richer you were, the bigger the coin, the louder it made going into the offering plate. But it meant more to Jesus seeing those two coins than the big coins being dropped in. Because the attitude behind the giving of the offering was that they were showy and prideful of what the offering was about. Jesus isn't showy and prideful. He's humble, and he wants us to be humble. And so even the smallest thing we do for God, he looks at it as some huge thing. And he doesn't want us to get prideful or, show you about what we do for God. Like, hey, I'm Leslie. I did all this. He doesn't want that. He just wants little kinds of acts of kindness. And so that's where the inspiration for day one came from. And then community, I used Jesus washing the disciples' feet because that was like what he showed about giving back. And what a lot of people don't know about washing feet is I've read that in Bible times, the feet were the grossest part of the body because you wore sandals and sometimes it was like dirty and mucky when they would have to go through certain terrain. So it was an act of kindness to like give them something to wash their feet with. But for him to like actually physically wash their feet, he was showing us how to serve. Now, granted, most of us aren't going to, wash each other's feet, but he gives us an example that even though he's the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, he still served. And because he served, he expects us to serve no matter our age. And so in day 3 is the church. And I used the 5 loaves and 2 fishes. And I went with this story because it was a kid. And I wanted the kids to see that no matter their age, they can serve God. No matter if they're the only one in their family, they can still serve God. If no one else around them is serving God, they can still serve God. And he'll take their little bit and make something wonderful out of it.
I love those stories, Leslie, and you did a wonderful job unpacking these sometimes difficult ideas and making the connections for kids in each of the devotions. And just, I cannot wait to release these, release this document and the guide, and to see how our families connect through Global Serve Day on a new level, not just serving, but looking into God's Word and finding those awesome truths that you have unpacked for them. So thank you again for doing that. So on day 3 of Global Serve Day in our guide, you shared a testimony about how God used you very simply as a child to bless someone in your congregation. And so before we go, I wanted to ask you just to share that story with us.
Okay, I was about 8 years old at the time. And this guy, who I cannot remember his name, but this guy at our church, he had been coming for a few months. And I just remember that he was very nice, but he was also very quiet. And he was around 25 or 30 at the time. And it was Easter Sunday. And I remember looking at his pew was to the pew across from me. And I remember looking at him and thinking, Jesus doesn't want anyone to be by themselves on Easter Sunday. Because Easter is a special holiday. I like it more than Christmas, because Easter represents Jesus gave us life, you know? And to me, no one should be alone on Easter. It's Easter. And I asked my parents if that was okay, because at that time I wasn't allowed to sit with anyone else beside my parents without permission. And I told them I wanted to sit with him. And my parents just looked at me and they said, okay, if you ask him and he says yes, you can go sit with him, but don't talk. Whatever you do, don't talk. It's like, okay. Because apparently I had a hard time being quiet during service. So I said, okay. So I went over to him and I said, may I sit with you? And he said yes. And so I sat with him. And that stuck out with me because that let me know I could do other things with God. And I was talking to my mom about this the other day. And I said, it was a month later after that incident was Mother's Day. And I was asked to write something for Mother's Day and read it in front of the entire church. And if I had not obeyed God in that moment, I wouldn't have been prepared to do the Mother's Day or any other thing that I've done since then. So yeah, it sounds small to maybe a lot of people, but to God it was a big deal. And to me it was a big deal because I still remember it. And I don't remember a lot from 8 years old, but I remember that. So
I love it. And one of your themes throughout the devotion guide is that even the simplest things can make a huge impact. And so we are excited about the guide. If you would like to access this free resource, you can do so at the Global Serve Day website, which is globalserveday.com. You can also find it on the Children's Ministry website, which is cogop.org/children. And in the guide, you'll find, as we've described, there are 3 days worth of devotions that the children can do either alone or hopefully with their family. They follow each of the day's themes for Global Serve Day. We also have an appendix. We threw in some of the ideas from past years in case you were not a part of Global Serve Day before. So you have a number of ideas each day for how you, your children in your ministry or in your home can engage in Global Serve Day. So we hope that you'll go, that you'll access that resource. Go ahead and mark your calendar. It's Global Serve Day will be May the 27th, the 28th, and the 29th. There'll be other resources available online to help you, again, be a part of this great day of serving with your Church of God of Prophecy family all around the world. Well, Leslie, thank you again for being with me today. It's always a pleasure speaking with you.
you too, Shaun. Thank you for having me.
Sure. And I'll tell you, Leslie, you are an inspiration to so many of us. So thank you for giving so generously of your talents and your abilities. I think, Leslie, if we had had a competition at ICM, you would have been our favorite participant at the Institute. People just enjoy getting to know you and hearing your story. So we look forward to hearing more from Leslie in the future. And we look forward to connecting with those of you who are watching. We know that Global Serve Day will be a huge blessing, and we invite you to be a part. Thank you again for joining us today, and may God bless you.